So I'll talk a little bit, if you don't care, about like what we're currently doing. Where I came back from, I've talked about, where that mindset that I came back into, wanting to really kind of just do this the right way, just like find the concrete information. So I in October, this past October, I decided to go from a highly processed, gluten-free, dairy-free, low-sugar diet to Reed diets. Now, I'm not doing the Reed perfect plate and doing all the veggies and stuff. So the Reed diet, though, is a diet that you're trying to eliminate sources of glutamate, which is in everything processed. I can safely say it's in about everything that's processed. And so you're trying to eliminate those sources because our kids, a lot of them, have difficulty converting glutamate into GABA. So you're going to have this exotoxicity in the brain. That's a mouthful to say. You're going to have this excitatory response in the brain that is going to keep them kind of in overdrive all the time and just cause the neurons not to be like communicating well. And you're going to be flooding the body with glutamate, and it kind of signals the brain to bring in things to help digest the proteins and stuff that are supposed to be attached to the glutamate, but the glutamate that's in the processed foods doesn't have protein attached to it. It's just free glutamate, which is the problem. So the diet is geared towards eliminating those sources of glutamate as much as possible. And I thought that would be a good choice for our son because he did well in Namenda, and Namenda does the same thing. It blocks the NMDA receptors, which is what the glutamate is received by and processed by. So it's going to block those from being able to pick up the glutamate. So the diet, I thought, would complement that nicely. And since he responded so well to the Namenda, I thought that would be perfect for him. We, at about the same time, trying to think what actual month we started. That was...
You weren't working with a doctor at this time.
Yeah. So at this time, I was still with our first MAPS doctor, but I hadn't had like any appointments with him in a while. And we became interested in doing stem cell therapy. And I found a MAPS doctor who that was kind of more their specialty. They just worked with that a little bit more with kids who had stem cell therapy and stuff like that. So we decided to switch to that MAPS doctor, and it's actually two doctors. They call themselves the M Center, and it's two female doctors, and so it's really nice. It's like having two doctors at each appointment gives you that extra collaboration to be able to bounce ideas and
reassurance in what you're doing.
Yeah, and they kind of have both their little niches as well. Monica is really great with genetics and with research. Like she has PhD in research. And so she's really great with all that kind of thing. And Maya's just kind of like a great MAPS doctor. I mean, I think she's great with a little bit of everything. Immune system.
Why they call it the M Center? Because of Monica and Maya.
Yes, I assume. I actually have never asked, but I'm going to assume. So we started with them about mid-September. So right as we were making that shift in the diet, maybe we did start the diet a little bit before that. I feel like maybe right around that same time we had started that Reed diet and just took out everything processed. So I just make everything that my boys would already eat from scratch, and that's just kind of simply how we've started. I do want to start to get them to do like the green smoothies or smoothies in general. Don't have to be green, but like fruit and veggie smoothies is kind of my next step with that, and we'll see where that goes. But ideally with that diet, you want to be adding in, not just taking away. So you want to be adding, good foods and taking out bad foods. And I've done the taking out bad foods, and I've added in some good foods for sure, but we got a lot more adding to do. My boys are just, typical picky eaters.
Funny that you mentioned that, because I always think of the diet as kind of like a two-step process. So step one would be removing the ingredients that could
Yes.
be causing issues. And then step 2 would be finding ways to add in nutrient dense
Yes.
food.
It is. It is a 2-step, and I've been on step 1 for a while, so it took me a little bit longer, I see, because I came from such a terrible eating family and background, and it's probably been harder on me than the kids because I ate worse than them. So, so I think that's why it's taken me maybe a little bit longer to get onto that step 2. But I'm really hopeful we'll be done the smoothies before spring. It's my goal. That shouldn't be too hard. I think the boys will be receptive to it. It's just a matter of learning how to do it because I don't know anything about health food. I've had to learn all kind. I remember, this is the funniest thing. You'll think this is, I'm going to sound really stupid, but I did not know what an avocado necessarily was. So I'm going into Kroger's looking for an avocado, and this was actually for my 3rd son because he was my child. I was going to get it right, and his first food was going to be an avocado. He showed me it was not, but I was determined at that point his first food was going to be an avocado. So I don't know what that is, but I'm going to go find one. So I go into the store, and I knew because I was typing it out to someone that I was going to get an avocado. I knew there was an emoji for an avocado. So I'm walking around Kroger's,
Looking at
typing
the
avocado into my phone, looking at the emoji, trying to find what an avocado was. Just to give you an idea of where I started at.
emoji is green, so you're probably looking for something green, right?
I don't know. And I about puked when I had to cut it open and there was this big hard ball in it. I thought that was the grossest thing ever. Yeah, so I have some sensory issues as well.
No. Every time I take a capsule, I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
I have my husband taste test different things, like taste this so I know how it tastes for the kids. Poor husband.
Yeah, I feel so bad for my son, but he takes things like a champ. And the way we've always done it with him is we just put it in a little bit of juice. And I bought this, it's called a milk frother, just like a little blender stick. And, it helps like the capsules like dissolve faster and it makes it a little less grainy, I feel like. So we've just done that and then just syringe it in his mouth, and he'll take pretty much anything in a syringe without fighting. He's just kind of gotten used to it. I just kind of approached it matter of fact like, and I think we did some rewards there at the beginning, like some candy or something after he would take it, and you just kind of got to build up to it. I also remember at one point I started out just giving him water in the syringe and then juice in the syringe, just juice without anything, and then kind of building up that trust. So those are some things that can maybe...
And that's similar to what we did with the smoothie. So when you start doing the smoothie thing with your son, make the first ones like really sweet, just fruit, and then slowly add in like the veggies and less sweeteners. So
yeah,
build their trust with it first.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll definitely have to. So the M Center, like I said, you have 2 doctors, so that's been really great. And so I told them, I was open to doing a lot of testing. They sent me home with like 2 tests that they wanted me to do. Or well, I did telemedicine at first. So they actually just mailed me the test. But so we did the Zoomer, and the neural Zoomer is like you're kind of looking at brain antibodies, like what is, I think if I understand, this is a complex one. I don't understand this test super well, but it's similar to the Cunningham, and probably people are more familiar with that. So it can help kind of pick up anything like pandas or PANS or autoimmune like function of the brain, like what the brain is producing autoimmune antibodies to, I think. Saying that right. So they sent me home with that one, and the MDL is just like titers. So we needed to like actually get a better picture of where his immune system was and what
kind of titers are they looking for in that one? Like certain pathogens or infections that they could have been exposed to?
I think it wasn't all viruses. It was all the viruses you normally want to look at. Lyme, it had a more sophisticated Lyme test than the Western blot. It's more sensitive, so it's definitely better than the Western blot. You've got measles, trying to think what other ones we saw in there. Strep. No, take that back. Strep wasn't on that one. It was on the Zoomer.
Okay.
The Zoomer had strep on it. Yeah, I can't remember exactly what all was on that one. His MDL. Yeah, his MDL actually came back totally fine. His Zoomer showed some abnormalities. So it's not always, and I'm not going to be or pretend to be an immune expert, but I know that the doctors that I've worked with have said that, the titers aren't necessarily meaning that, if you have a high titer for that one,
it could be a past infection, but not something that you're currently.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is why you need a doctor to kind of help you interpret these things. Because when I saw high strep on the Zoomer, I was like, oh my gosh, we need to treat strep. But it can just be there's some immune work that needs to be done there for sure. But we haven't actually got to that phase of it. So the way they set it up is, you do your testing, you do your consult, they order the test, you come back and they give you a treatment plan that they'll go over with you super thoroughly. Maya is amazing at going over test results super thoroughly. And so they'll walk through all that with you and then send you your treatment plan. And they do it in phases. I'm sure that everyone's phases will look different. Our first one was inflammation. And so that's where we were. And then we did stem cells. So we haven't moved on to our next phase because we're waiting to see kind of what give the stem cells time. So we haven't actually got to the immune system phase yet, but working with them has been great. And then we also, right around the same time, told you I came back really on fire again, but I feel like in a healthier way. I wasn't so obsessed with reading all the Facebook group stuff, but more like, okay, let's get real about this and get some real information. So we did branch out and try homeopathy, which I was surprised that I hadn't tried up to this point, because it is what I would consider a pretty heavy hitter. That's one that parents, a lot of parents see really big gains with that. So we decided to do, I don't know if I'll say it right, Heilkunst. It's Heilkunst, and it works on a timeline kind of similar to cease therapy, which is probably a little more, seems like more popular. So you're doing.
It comes in more on vaccinations.
The cease one?
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. I think I've heard that the cease one is much slower. I think you're clearing like one thing at a time and for like a longer stretch of time doing the clears. I'm not sure. I just have heard that it takes a good while to get through it. And Heilkunst doesn't know quick fix either, so I can't imagine it being even longer. But so you're doing your timeline of traumas that can be vaccines, that can be pregnancy traumas, and you're going to put those in order from they're going to work backwards. So they're going to do your most current trauma. Like for my son, we cleared Keppra because he was on Keppra for a while, and so that was one of his most recent ones. And you're going to work backwards to anything that happened in the pregnancy. And in the middle, you're probably going to have your vaccines, and any other prescriptions you think maybe you want to get out of their body.
A response to each clear, or some yes, some no?
Yeah. I have seen a continual build with the most clear eyes and like just, I mean, I don't know how to explain it other than like clear eyed. I mean, it's just like the eye contact and the just awareness that you see in his face, and like just like he is aware and paying attention to what other people are doing in his environment and looking at me in the face when I'm talking to him. And he actually kind of weirdly
understanding what you're saying to him.
Yes, he seems like he's understanding and trying to like just noticing what's going on in the room around him. So it seems to have pulled him a little further out of his own little world there. And it's in the same vein, it has made him way more social. And so we have seen him being so much more playful with his brothers. And I have reports from the school that he was playing cars on several occasions with the same little boy on the playground, and that him and that little boy are running around together and chasing each other. And so, yeah, we've seen notable progress with it, and we're not very far into it. We have done maybe 6 clears, so we got a ways to go. I think we are getting ready to do his MMR vaccine clear. So we are just starting in on the vaccine one, so we're not very far. Did
his measles titers come back elevated? Do you remember?
No, they weren't. No. So I'm not sure what to expect with it. I know that that's a really damaging vaccine, so I am kind of preparing myself for more of a healing reaction. He's not had, same thing with homeopathy. You can have healing reactions, same as, these other protocols. So you can have some worsening before it gets better. And I've actually not seen that with him. I've just seen really good improvements. And I know, yeah, and I was totally skeptical about this, but I thought it's relatively cheap compared to some of the biomedical stuff. So I thought, why not give it a shot? Because there's a lot of people that have come really far away.
And it's completely safe. Like, it's one of those things where there's really no adverse reactions. You can't really give too much or overdose or cause issue, which is nice. It's completely safe.
Yeah. Your body is not going to, if it doesn't need it, it's not going to really do anything with it. I know I'm going to say it's super complex. I've tried to read, we work with Rudy, Dr. Rudy, and he's in Canada.
Homeopathy, that's who I was wanting to work with as well, and we still might in the future, but I've heard
he's wonderful. He is wonderful. He's super down to earth and nice, and we just do, of course, telephone communication with him, and you just talk to him. Gosh, it only takes about a half hour. It's not like these MAPS appointments that go on for like 3 hours. It's pretty quick because you're already sending in the timeline, and it's pretty simple, and it's not that expensive. So it's been an easy one to implement. And you're giving, so how it works is when you're doing a clear, you're going to give, Rudy calls them little wafers. And so when he's saying this on the phone, I was envisioning like a wafer cookie. So that's what I was envisioning. It's actually more, to me, it reminds me, I don't even know if they still make these. When I was a teenager, it was a big thing. The Listerine strips that you just like put on your tongue and it like dissolves.
Ooh, I was like that. Like you were using pellets.
No. So it's just these little, and you just put it on your tongue and it dissolves. It's tasteless as far as, I don't know. I haven't tried one because I don't want to waste one on me, but it appears to be like pretty tasteless. He doesn't mind it at all. And then he will give you what they call support droppers, which are just just put the little drops in their liquid, and it's only like 1 drop of each twice a day. So a funny note though. So homeopathy, still, we lightheartedly joke about it, but it works. And I'm just like, okay, doc, give me your little voodoo papers. I don't know what the heck's in there. Like, I don't understand it. But bring it on. And the droppers, it was hilarious. We like crack up about this all the time. Rudy's like, he writes you a note with the droppers, and it said, your bottles may appear empty when you receive them. That's okay. They should come with like a little bit of liquid in them, but if it's all dried up, that's okay. Just go ahead and still add water to it and it'll be fine. And I was like, you just mailed me empty bottles.
Right.
What is this going to do? And
like magic or what?
I know, it's hilarious. And then we traveled and we went on an airplane, and I saw on a board, one of the discussion boards, the x-rays through the airport can make the homeopathy clear, or remedies not work anymore. So I was like, okay. So I asked Rudy about it, and he's like, no, it should be fine. He's like, but if it makes you feel better, just dump them out and pour more water in it. It's fine. I was like,
So you just need like the tiniest trace amount.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, it's still going to work. And he's like, yeah. He's like, actually, it'll just make it like even more potent. I'm like, you are crazy, dude. But fine, it's working for my kids, so we'll roll with it. Whatever you say.
Like, I think he's doing like magic and spells on my kid, and there's really nothing in this.
No, I'm like, how can there be anything left? I've dumped it out and refilled it 2 times now, and he's telling me it's more potent. Okay, so, but I mean, it's funny. I'm just like, we laugh about it. Like, me and my husband like cracked up after he told us that. I was like, okay, yeah, I don't know. So there are some things that I will delegate to people I trust, and he's one of them. I'm like, I don't understand it. Okay. As long as it's, helping our son and it's not hurting him and we know and have looked into the safety of it, I'm like, okay, I don't understand how this empty bottle is going to help him, but okay. So homeopathy is its own breed of stuff, but I do encourage everyone to give it a shot just because of the results that we've seen with it and the safety and the track record with it. It is a very old medicine. So it's been used for quite a long time. So I think it's worth a shot for everybody. Like, I'm like, goodness, if you can't afford to get into Biomed and stuff, maybe you can look into homeopathy first, and that can be like a way to get primed up and get ready for.
And it's also a good way to kind of move out of the pharmaceuticals too, because there is a lot of homeopathic remedies for like inflammation and fevers. And, when you start doing this Biomed, you don't want to keep giving like Tylenol and Motrin and antibiotics. So finding natural alternatives to keep on hand during those emergency situations is also really helpful.
Yeah. Really? Yeah. So it's not a bad place to start. That and diet are pretty, cheap to do. Diet's not really cheap, but
everyone in the household is eating different food. It's like, buy all the kid stuff first, and then we'll see what funds we have left over for ourselves to eat.
Exactly. Yeah. I think it's important for the parents to try to eat as clean as they can, but when it comes to priority, like, they get the cleanest of clean stuff. And We've stepped up with us significantly since we've started the Read thing. Like, I'm eating cleaner. My husband eats junk food at work. So I'm still mad about it. Husbands sometimes can be more difficult to switch diets than the children. It's been my experience. So case in point here with testing is that this morning I had a follow-up with the M Center just to go over one test that we did. We did all that testing initially and made a treatment plan and everything. And then we did stem cells, and I went ahead and pulled a little bit more blood and did a methylation panel, because that was one I kind of flew under my radar. And we got to talking in one of our appointments about over and under methylation. This is a good resource, hopefully, that will be helpful to people. But there's a doctor named Dr. Menza who follows the WASH protocol and is trained in the WASH treatment. He's basically a nutrition-based medicine type doctor, like nutrition medicine. And so this is again where those little niches come into play. Like, if I ever can afford the money, I would like to go to them and get a really detailed, specific nutrition plan for our autistic son, because, man, you can think that you're doing so good and then find out coconuts are cause inflammation in this child. And you can think, well, we're feeding you all healthy stuff, but until you get this really detailed stuff. So I would love to go see Dr. Menza. I've heard talks from him. I'm super impressed with him, but he's also, he's in Chicago.
Okay.
He's in Chicago. And there are other WASH. It's one of those deals where you can get on there and find other centers kind of close to you that are trained in the WASH protocol or treatment plans. I don't know what they term that like, but so he deals a lot with over and under methylation and talks about like how a lot of our kids are over methylators. And so, certain foods that you can think are really healthy can actually be really damaging to them in their methylation cycles and stuff. So that got me thinking, well, our son didn't really do good with B12. Maybe we just got this wrong. So I wanted to check into methylation. So I asked them to do methylation panel. And this is through, I think it was through Genova. I think so, yeah. And it was really cool. We looked at it this morning. I really loved this one. This was really cool. And it breaks down like the whole methylation cycle, which just blows my mind every time I look at it. I'm like, what am I looking at? And so, it's got that whole little chart, and then it shows you kind of, where your levels are on each step of the chart. And if it's, high or low.
Where on the methylation cycle things are going wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So I loved it. It was very visual and like good for my brain to be able to comprehend a little bit better. So our son, surprisingly, see, this is one of those things you would never know until you test. He has all the SMPs that would suggest that he probably has trouble methylating. Most all of our kids, we assume, have trouble methylating if they're, on the spectrum. And so we all do B12s and folinic and all these things to help methylation. And he actually doesn't really have a problem with methylation. What he does have a problem with, that I had never ever heard of, and you may have to help me pronounce this one, transsulfuration cycle. So I wish I had the picture with me of the chart. So like you got your methylation cycle up here, and then it goes down to this transsulfuration cycle. And so that's where everything was jacked up on his. He had all kinds of areas that were low and high.
Sensitivities.
I think what the transsulfuration is it's the metabolic pathway that, from my understanding, is pretty much what's going to make the sulfur to make the glutathione. So we know glutathione is our detox, our detox guru there that kind of helps us with getting all the toxins out of our body. And it's very high, like it's a sulfur. That's all I know about it. So this metabolic pathway that kind of is responsible for creating that and make that happen in our son is completely just broken. So of course that means we knew that his glutathione was low, but now knowing why, because there could be lots of ways to have a broken glutathione, just have low glutathione. So it was really nice to know why. And so this is going to be a totally different treatment plan than treating methylation. So what we're going to do is we're going to give him glutathione daily. And we're going to do, on that note, to tie that into something we talked about earlier, Andy Cutler does not believe in giving glutathione. So this is one of those areas where you have to kind of think for yourself and decide, what is best for your child. So with us, I feel at this point, seeing his levels and everything, I can't just not do something for that. So we're going to do liposomal glutathione, and B6 is, so what is maybe unique to Monica. I'm not sure if all doctors, I guess maybe they can do this too. So she's really wonderful with genetics, So she was able to kind of look at the maximized genetics test that we did, and then look at his results from this methylation panel, and kind of, because it will show you on their chart which genes control that pathway. And so if you have a mutation in this one, you can kind of better get a picture if that gene is actually, that mutation is turned on or off, So his COMT mutation appears to be presenting with him. So we're going to give some B6 and some iron. And I have always been interested in Quinton water. So that's something she suggested for this too. So I think we're going to start that immediately. I don't think she didn't suggest waiting. She just said, go ahead and do that, even though we have recently done stem cells. So we should be doing that, moving into that pretty soon. I'm excited to see what that does, because
what was that test called again that you had done, the methylation one?
I don't know. I just keep calling it a methylation panel by Genova, because they told me about it during just a conversation, and I was like, yes, order that. And I never
I'm interested in it now. I want to order it.
Yeah, I never really like looked it up myself to see like the name of it or anything. I just thought, yeah, I want to know more about how he's methylating. And I honestly didn't really know there was a test out there for that, because anytime I had heard of testing for that was just looking at B12 serum and then similar markers that would cue you in that you weren't absorbing that or, metabolizing that properly. But
yeah, or just the genetic side and assuming that if they have the mutation, it's active, which is not the case always.
No, that's not. And of course, with Monica and Maya, they're really well aware of that. You have to be careful when you have a doctor that relies too heavily on the genetics. I've had that before. We briefly worked with another doctor who suggested, since he had the comp mutation, maybe taking him off things that had sulfur in it and stuff. So, I don't know. But then, like, the M Center, they're like, well, that just because he has that doesn't mean, he had things with sulfur in it and never reacted. So that's really the test there is, are they tolerating it or not,
You had mentioned about doing this methylation test. And so what kind of are your next steps that you have in mind? Where do you plan to go from here?
So obviously we've done one round of stem cells. Stem cells are wonderful, but they're not a one-time deal. And I know that's hard because they're not on the low end of financial cost spectrum with biomed stuff. So they can be expensive, but you do have to do those multiple times. So we're looking to try to keep that at a 3 to 6 month rotation of doing them every 3 to 6 months. I think we're going to take a little bit longer of a break this time, more towards the 6 month mark, because I want to do some more homeopathic clears. My son actually has a parasite that showed up on his stool test that we need to address. So we have a few things to do before we do our next round, but that's definitely in the future plans. Continuing the homeopathy, doing all the rest of the clears. We'll probably work those in with stem cells somehow. I'm not sure exactly the pattern that we'll do that. And then the HBOT, we bought an HBOT machine months ago, and it's one of those things that I just had always been drawn to, and I just felt strongly that was something that we needed to try. I kind of knew that stem cells were in our future, and the two kind of can complement each other pretty well. So I wanted to start that, but unfortunately so to buy that, we actually did a little bit of fundraising, kind of. We did actually just yard sales and kind of went to some like flea markets and did that, which is a fun experience. Like, that's just talk about people watching. That is a fun experience. So we had a blast doing it. I mean, it was hard work, but it was fun and stuff. So we did really well with that. And that led to, since we were doing that, and we actually made like a poster that told, why, like, we put it up at our cells. And when we would have the flea market sales or whatever, we would have our poster that showed our son's picture and told them what we were, trying to raise money for. And anything that we sold would go towards the HBOT machine. And we actually had some people just donate, just knowing that we were doing that, like people that we do life with, and then people that would just be walking by and would just not buy anything but give us money. So it was super sweet, super encouraging. Like, it is, I think HBOT and probably stem cells are probably a little bit easier for people to support you on, that maybe don't necessarily understand or believe in biomed and detoxing and stuff like that. But they can kind of get behind these two things because there's a lot more
research, and it is implemented in some modern medicine practices.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it, that it is well known in the medical community. It's just kind of a more off-label use right now. I think that'll change, especially in the case of stem cells. But so I didn't really feel like people were judging us for doing that. I felt a lot of support with that. Now, would they have been supportive with us doing like a chelation protocol or something? Probably not, but
Like Googling what is chelation before they donated.
yes. So that went really well, and we were able to raise the money to get the machine. But being that we have 3 little ones, I wanted to make it its own little room, which is suggested that if you can, to make it its own designated place, because it's large and fragile, and you don't want kids stepping on it. Yeah, it's expensive. So we were working on that, putting that in our basement, and and then it just kind of takes my little husband quite a while to get these little projects done sometimes, and he ended up going through a season of working like lots of overtime, so it was taking a while to get done. And in the meanwhile, I was feeling really led to do homeopathy and go to the M Center and doing the diet, and you just kind of got like put on the back burner. And then we got the opportunity to do stem cells, and you don't really want to start if you haven't done HBOT before. It wouldn't, they didn't really advise me to do that like right before stem cells, because you don't know how they're going to react to it. It can stir some things up. I hear a lot of people say that it stirs up yeast flares, which I guess maybe could be because you're oxygen feeding some of those. I think some bacteria and things. I know some parasites feed on oxygen. So, knowing all that now, I think it would be a great idea to do a little bit of testing before doing HBOT to make sure that you don't have like a parasite that you're going to be feeding oxygen and helping survive in the body.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad that we did that, because I wouldn't have
guys that your husband. So maybe he did his research. Maybe he thought, well, my son might have a parasite, so I better wait.
Maybe.
That was his plan.
So yeah, I think it was a blessing in disguise. Like now, I just kind of, I just kind of believe that this all happens for a reason, and so I'm just kind of trusting in the plan, in the things happen like this for a reason.
Right. So I mention.
Mm-hmm, I do. I think that I don't know what the reason is exactly that we haven't done HBOT yet, and it's been kind of hard because people did help us to get it, and then they want to know how he's doing with it. And I'm like, well, we haven't actually got it to use it yet, but I do think we will. I still feel like it was a good decision. I don't think the timing's been right. That may be one of the things that we do when we take a break between cells. But you have to do 40 dives of that, so that's 40 days. I don't know what they call them. I don't know if they call it a round, or I don't know what they call that.
What do they call that? I'm not super familiar with it, but from what I've heard, there is a protocol that you follow of 40 days, and you do a certain amount of hours to get the most benefit out of it. And if you space it too long in between, you're not going to see the same result.
Yeah.
I could be wrong.
No, I think that's right. I know it is like a minimum of like 40 days. And yeah, you're wanting to do that every day of those. So,
huge time investment.
Yeah, it is. I think my son will do well with getting in it. Some may have trouble getting their child in it. I think he will, because I will get in it with him and stuff. So I think he'll do fine. And I'm excited to start it, but I do feel like there was a reason that it's been put on hold. And so I'll just have to see how we kind of feel and what my gut is telling me to do here in a few weeks when we're able to start adding stuff like that in. They want you to wait till about the 8-week mark after cells to kind of see what the cells have done for you, so you're not muddying the results any. And then
isolated from other things.
Yeah, because stem cells is something expensive. Like, it's one thing to kind of do 2 supplements together, and then you don't know which $30 supplement worked, but we're talking thousands of dollars. You want to know exactly what that did.
Something you should keep doing, or if it's something that's not showing.
Right. Yes. So what I will say that has come from so far with our cells, and we're just a few weeks out, is major poop toxing. Like, I don't know that I had even knew that was a thing until now. And they warned me of it at our appointment. And Yeah, they weren't lying. So, and even still now, like he'll go like a day with normal bowel movements, and then all of a sudden we'll have explosive diarrhea for like the whole day, and we'll have like 3 major blowouts. Like he's had 2
like
days.
your whole day wiping kids' bottoms.
Yes, it's rough. And like he does it at school, and bless their hearts, like they had to shower him twice at school the other day. It was just so bad. And I had to just throw his clothes away. I was like, God, there's no salvaging this. So we've had some poop toxing, which is one of those things that it's like, but it's doing something, you know. He obviously has trouble detoxing because he responded so well to ACC, and he has low glutathione and all these things that we're discovering. So, you know, the fact that he's detoxing now, I'm like, got to take the good with the bad and just hope that it means that there's some healing right behind it. And we've seen an increase in speech. So that's been really exciting. Like actually, since the third, like when I told you that third round of ACC and he had that huge leap in speech, like that excitement that I felt that day is kind of similar to what happened to me last night with him. I mean, I think just because I wasn't expecting it, I was just sitting with him, and he scripts a lot. So my son's like a big scripter, but he is starting to like say things that aren't in the script, you know, words that I can tell are language. Yes. And I can't remember what was it he said last night that I can't remember.
You just start wearing a GoPro, so you just always have everything on camera just in case.
I know, because my brain is so fried at this point. But I do know that then we were sitting on the couch, and then we went into his room and we were playing barbershop. He loves to play barbershop and pretend to be a barber. And he has this little Ken doll that he always pretends to cut his hair. Like he has a little barber chair for his little figurines, and then he has all the barbershop tools and stuff. So he was doing that, and he sat the guy in the chair and he said, "Sitting." And I said,
which was spontaneous. It wasn't scripted. Which
was spontaneous. It was a verb instead of a noun, and it was in proper ing format. So I was like, yeah, he is sitting. And then he held the guy up to me and like just kept looking at me and looking at the guy like he wanted me to tell him what it was called. So I was like, what do I call that? And I was like, a man. And he said, man sitting, and sat him down. And I was like oh my God.
The sentence.
Yes. I was like, oh my gosh, you just put a noun and a verb together on your own with ing at the end of the verb. So I was like floored. I was like super floored, because that is because all we have heard for ever is just scripting, and he's really good at scripting, but this was spontaneous. Yes, he was a master scripter, very good at it, but this was spontaneous and this was meaningful, and it was amazing. And then he kept just saying little things, like he started cutting my husband's hair, and he was just
really cutting it.
Oh, no. No. He was pretending to cut my husband's hair, and he was just saying little things that were blowing us away. Like we just kept like looking at each other like, holy cow, did he just say that? Just spontaneous speech that we hadn't heard, and then more meaningful things. And then this morning he like went to open the door, and he's like, "It's locked." And I'm like, "Did you just say it's locked?" Like the thing with him is that his speech is mostly nouns, and then he's completely ignored the existence of like pronouns and prepositions and all these other parts of speech.
Phrases.
Yeah, to what you would need to make a phrase. So that was like huge for him to spontaneously be able to say these things. And then I've noticed on the couch, we were sitting on the couch before the barbershop incident. So when I first realized that he was having some improvement with speech, he just started saying "the" in front of everything. Instead of just a noun, he would say "the Cowboys." And I was like, "The Cowboys?" And he's like, "The Cowgirls." And I was like, "You're putting "the" in there. Like you're recognizing that there is another part of speech and making it more like phrase-like." Wow. And so, I mean, that's it's like he's been stuck at this level for so long that any little improvement is like humongous to me right now.
And
So
see all the things that they've been storing for so long that they couldn't verbally communicate.
yes, absolutely. I think I think there's a lot. Yeah, we totally underestimate him sometimes. And that's kind of one of the things I'm working on, is trying to talk more like I would to a typical 6-year-old to him. And then, just kind of setting that level of expectation of communication with him instead of like baby talking. It's hard to get out of that, but I've been trying to be like, just talk to him like he understands, because I think he does understand a lot more than what we give him credit for. So yeah, that's been our so far what we've seen with stem cells, and then an improvement in the clarity, improvement in those social skills that we already saw that were improving right before. We've seen a little bit of a boost even in those areas with him interacting with us like nonstop. Like it's almost, I have to catch myself and be like, no, you prayed for this, because he will come and he'll just grab your hand, and that's another thing he started saying to us since the stem cells is, come on. And I'm like, but we have to eat. I have to cook. Like,
but you want to reinforce him for including you and saying those things. So it's like, okay, I have to reward him right now.
Yes, I know. So that's been a struggle. But I'm like, yeah, don't complain, because that's what you wanted. So he is like always wanting us or his brothers to play with him. And so we've seen a little bit of a boost in that. And yeah. And he was singing within a few days of the stem cells. He was singing Ring Around the Rosie, which he's sung songs before, but they've been songs from videos or cartoons. So this was the first time he sung a song that he had only heard me sing. So that was pretty big.
Good job. Do it with Hey, hold Jonas's hands. Hold Jonas's hands. Sing. Ring around. Sing. That's why you don't like to do it with you, Jonas.
See the video.
Yeah, and then he started saying things like "Mommy, jump" when he wanted me to jump on the trampoline with him, which is huge on a lot of levels. That means he wants to interact with me. He wants my involvement in it. He didn't want to jump by himself.
It's spontaneous.
He is spontaneous, addressing me with my name, which was so huge. Like the child ignored the fact that anyone had a name for years. Like it was like pulling teeth to get him to even like prompted to say his own name or say my name. Like it was very difficult for him to like grasp names. So the fact that he was calling me.
We had previously spoken and you had mentioned that he would use scripting to identify you or refer to you. You had mentioned something about the big bad wolf.
Yeah. So he's, like I said, master scripter. So this was even pretty early on. This was probably ACC days. He would holler at me when he was mad at me and say, "Big bad wolf." And it's because he had seen a cartoon with the big bad wolf and it was a bad guy. So
that's now calling you mommy. That's a huge improvement.
That's an upgrade. I'll take that. Not the big bad wolf anymore.
Mommy sounds a lot better than big bad wolf.
Yeah. So, okay, we could talk a little bit. I don't think I've talked a lot about kind of where he started and then where we are now. I know I've now talked a lot about where he's at now. I know I've mentioned that he was just talking in a few nouns, and socially he would interact. This is even before ACC. So before Biomed, he would interact pretty well with adults because adults know how to like keep pushing themselves on him and really get down into his own world or into his world. Whereas like other students and other kids, they're just going to be like, "Hey, do you want to play?" okay, you didn't answer me, then go off. So he did okay with adults that really pushed and tried to get his attention, but he wasn't playing with other students or kids. Whereas now he is driving his little brother insane because he will not leave him alone because he wants his little brother to play barbershop with him all the time. So we're seeing him actually seek out interaction with people other than just adults. So that's a big contrast. He was really stimmy starting out, just a lot of like the hand flapping and jumping up and down a lot. He was climbing everything all the time. Like I just got used to it. But then when he would go to school, like they were always like, I mean, I don't know if they were mad, but they were like concerned that he was going to get hurt at school. And they were, he actually ended up getting a one-on-one aide to watch him so that he wouldn't climb. And he was eloping at school a lot. He was really bad about just running off. I mean, that's I hate that part of it because it's just, you feel so fearful every time you go out anywhere. I was at a friend's house one time and he somehow, I mean, he's so sneaky and smart about it. He got out of the house and he was lost. I mean, we had to go around the block hollering for him and everything. And luckily someone had found him and just knew that he was lost. So they were walking around the neighborhood with him, trying to help him find. But I mean, I still feel a little held back from going and being as socially involved. It's kind of not just our autistic son, though. I think it's just the season of life with 3 little ones. It's just sometimes just too hard to go and do. But we couldn't do anything that was outdoors. It was okay, or I thought it was okay, to go to someone's house that felt safe, but then that happened. So even that wasn't totally safe. But it was really scary to do like birthday parties at the park. I'm like, it's just wide open. He could get anywhere at any time. So if we did stuff like that, I had to constantly stay with him. I couldn't just go and socialize or, anything like that. So yeah, he was bad about that. And chewing, my goodness, he chewed up everything. All of his toys would be totally mutilated. I was like, then that became like our go-to thing was to invite people to our house so that we could avoid the embarrassment of him climbing their furniture, because it's really hard to take a child that wants to scale their TV or their fish tank to their house, and then they're constantly like on edge because they're afraid the child's going to get hurt or break. So we just started inviting people to our house. But then even that was kind of embarrassing because I was like, these kids come and play in our toy room and all of the toys are so chewed up. Like poor Woody from Toy Story didn't have a head. He didn't have a boot. He didn't have a hand. Like they look creepy.
Had a puppy come in.
Yeah, I know. And we didn't have a dog to blame it on. And it was all of them. It wasn't just some of them. And I couldn't just throw away like the bad ones. It was like I'd have to throw away everything and he would just do it again. And that was another problem with going to other people's houses, is he would chew up their kids' toys, and then I would have to pay for other kids' toys so they could buy new ones. And it was so hard for a while. It was so isolating and difficult. So, and then of course, the laughing, my goodness, I would rather have the laughing, I guess, than an aggressive child. And he's never been aggressive at all. So I'm blessed in that aspect of it, but the laughing can drive you crazy when it's nonstop.
It's still a sign of like an abnormal response to things. So, knowing Biomed, something underlying is causing that.
Yeah. And his laugh wasn't it's like obnoxiously loud when he would get on that. It's just like deafening, and jumping, climbing, all that, spinning objects all the time. Yeah. So he was much more like stereotypical, like looking autistic with all the stimming behaviors and stuff. Whereas now I feel like you wouldn't know until you try to talk to him.
Like
you know what I mean?
His disability is truly more invisible now.
Yeah. I feel like he is so much calmer, definitely worlds calmer. We don't have the climbing hardly. I'm starting to see a little spike in that, but I'm assuming it's to do with the stem cells kind of stirring stuff up. But not nearly as bad. Nothing like it was. It doesn't spin anything. The eloping is still like, I wouldn't consider it eloping, but he will wander off. So you have to watch him. And then, if he sees something he really wants, he may bolt over to it, but he's not just trying to run just to run away and get away from you forever. he's just kind of like, oh, I see this, and he may run off. So we still have to be on alert with him, but it's not as scary, and I can trust him now to walk around the supermarket with me and just kind of keep an eye on him and call for him to come if he starts wandering off, and he'll usually come and catch up with me. So it's much better, much better than it was, and I'm hopeful that part will be an area that we see a lot of growth in, as this awareness is coming about in him and stuff. So I look for that to get a lot better. But we had him at the mall today, and he did really well at staying around us and stuff. He would start to wander off, and I'd put a collar. Yeah, so he's done better, much better on that, but not 100% better at that. And he's, like I've already described, his communication improving. And his eye contact, he can weird me out sometimes. He's just like staring contests with me, like dead in my eyes. And my husband will give me a hard time about that sometimes, but like I kind of struggle with it. So my son, he'll be sitting there and he'll just like, I think what it is I ask him to look at me so I can tell him something. And then he just keeps looking at me. And then he like looks at me like real close like that. And he gets up close to my eyeballs and he's like examining like the color of my eyes and stuff, I think. And I'm just like, I'm trying not to look away because I'm like, okay, we get one eye contact, then I'll do my best.
Tell me to give you eye contact and then you don't give it to me back.
Yeah. So I'm just like, okay. So yeah, he's really doing perfectly fine with the eye contact now and responding to his name, how that can be sometimes very difficult for them to actually look at you when you holler for their name. We're seeing a huge jump in that. So kind of all around better in about everything. I would say our biggest struggle now is just building up that speech. And I think as that happens, the social aspect will get even better, and hopefully that eloping will get better too. But yeah.
Clippers. Two.
Do you say towel? That's what we said.
I think you said two. Scissors?
Scissors. Hair dryer.
Hair dryer.
Brush.
What's that?
Boom.
Balloon. Which one says balloon? B. Good job. What's this? Fish.
Fish.
Can you? F. Good job. Hammer.
Hammer.
Good job. Desk.
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 Good job.
Bicycle.
Bye.
Horse.
Horse. Good job. Jacket.
Jacket.
And duck.
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 Good job, Noah. Give me a high five. You did awesome. Please. Read.
We. The. Dog. Can. Run. The. Frog. Can. Jump. I. Can. See. The. Forest.
Good job. High five.
1, 2. Oh.
Okay, next.
Mine. So.
Do. Good.
Now you go in to like A C
We.
we
The.
the
Good job. Give me high fives. Woo! What's this one?
can
Can.
I does
Does. Good job.
come
Good.
who
Who?
good like look
Look. Good job.
where
Where?
play
Play. How? What's this one?
there
They.
there up
Have.
have
Good job.
full was
1 plus 1 equals.
I don't like kids movies.
2. You do it on the number line. 1 plus 1 equals 2. Let's do, you do 1 plus 2 equals, what is that?
3
3. Good. 1 plus 2 equals 3. Can you do 1 plus 3 equals? Good job. Do it over here. 1 plus 1, 2, 3 equals, what is that?
4
4. Can you do it this way? You do 1 plus 5 equals.
5
Well, what the things you have in the works, looking towards the future, it sounds like some of these things will definitely help in those areas. Was there any other advice that you wanted to share with families in the community before we wrap this up?
So I would say just staying in tune with your child really well, because you can get overwhelmed and bogged down, like we talked about with, getting into the biomed scene and doing all the research. And you can I know for a while, I felt like I really lost the connection with my son, and it became more about trying to fix him than actually having that bond that everyone just knew that he and I had like such a special bond, and it felt like that really got broken for a while. So keeping that bond really strong, because that's important. I mean, I think it is important to the child because you want to keep them emotionally healthy, because all of that is tied in. This is what we are founding our healing on, is this holistic mindset of us being a whole being. And so I very much believe that we can't ignore their emotional needs, and we can't ignore their physical needs either, but you kind of have to balance that. And I think what happens a lot of times, I see in the communities, and I know in my experiences, focus overly on the physical health of the child, and we completely just forget to support that emotional health.
Part of why you started all the Biomed in the first place, and it is because of your love for your
Yeah.
child.
Yeah, so I think just making time to maybe have some one-on-one dates with them, you know, like little mommy and me dates, we do that. And, or just finding times you can steal away in the day with just them and sit down and work on a puzzle together, or get into their world and see where they're at, and do some bedtime routine stuff. That's usually a time that I get some good interaction with him, just telling him good night and stuff. Just make sure you're looking them in the eye a lot, looking at their face and stuff like that. And then getting them in nature. I've been learning a lot about the importance of being connected and grounded and, you know, in the outdoors. I think just
Vitamin D.
Yes, vitamin D input. I think that I've started adopting this mindset of autism being kind of a wake-up call, that we're getting away from the way we are designed, our bodies are designed to function and thrive in, which is, you know, with real food and with time outdoors. And then, you know, we're designed to have, of course, you know, a healthy emotional connection with other people and be a part of a community. Like, we're not designed to be isolated. So I think with all the development in our world, we are kind of moving so far away from that. We're making food fast and cheap, and we want to be inside more than outside. And
the interaction through technology versus real life human interactions.
Absolutely. So I think just getting the children, you know, a part of getting them to heal is getting them back closer to the way that our bodies are designed to function, with real food, real interaction, and having lots of time outdoors. And I'm way more mindful of the outdoor thing now, even if it's cold, because we get some cold weather where we live. But I still try to just have them go outside, even if it is pretty cold. We just bundle up. And we've talked about community, but I will give this little tip for helping keep community connections. One of my friends and I use an app called Marco Polo, and that allows us to send these video chats. So doing these long distance friendships can be hard, and just sending messages can not feel as personal. So if you want to take that a step further with someone, so if you want
to do one of these interviews.
Yes, this has been fun.
Yeah.
So that gives you a little bit more of like a face-to-face interaction, and so I think that's just a little helpful tip, not necessarily advice, but if you find someone you connect with, take that to the next level. Look into Marco Polo, or there was one called Voxer that we looked at too, but it kind of gives you the sense of like a real friendship. And it can be really actually time consuming sitting and typing on Messenger, and it can take you away from your kids, I think, more. Whereas when we do the videos, it feels I can include the kids in that and say, hey, come over and say hi, or I can like turn the camera around and let her see, you know, the kids and what they're doing. So it's more inclusive and keeps me from feeling like I'm just constantly doing this. And then of course it's just also, I think it's quicker. It feels quicker, or at least I can multitask with that more, maybe. You know, I can kind of like do my laundry while I'm doing that, rather than, like I said, having to have all my focus and all my energy into typing. So that's been like really huge for me. And I just have one person I do that with, but that is something to think about. And then, like, this is to do with diet. I know that it's really hard, and it was really hard for us. Like I said, I was very resistant to it for a really long time. But two of the things that convicted me about it was I heard a mom one time say, I hate cooking. I never cooked before, but my son is not going to get better because I'm lazy. Like, that's not going to be the reason. And I was like, oh, hurt. To go along with that, this has become like one of my things I have to tell myself all the time. It is, I saw it on Facebook. It said, sure, you would take a bullet for your kid. Like, sure, you would do that for them. You would die for them. You would take a bullet for them. But would you live healthy for them? And I was like, talk about convicting. Like, are we willing to live healthy? And you can take that further than just diet. Are you willing to take out the toxic relationships in your life? Are you willing to do self-care and take care of yourself and make sure you're mentally and emotionally stable. You can take that in so many ways, but it's been one that I like remind myself very often. Like, if you really love your kids, then you got to live a healthy life. So when we first started Biomed, I had to have a talk with my husband. He's always been really supportive of it, but he don't understand it to the level I do because he doesn't do all the reading. But one time when we were having a conversation about the money and stuff of it, I said, how would you feel if tomorrow morning I woke up, maybe I had a stroke, who knows, we don't have to name it. Something happened to me and all of a sudden I couldn't talk. I didn't know who you were. I didn't know my name. I didn't respond to my name. I just walked around the house and and I did all these things that our son does. Say that I was happy, but I'm like jumping all the time and laughing at nothing. And how would you feel if I was acting the exact same way that he is? My behaviors and my abilities and everything became just what his are. Would you put a limit on how much you were willing to spend to get me back? And then we touched on like the difficulty of relationships and stuff. Something I'm looking at doing personally, which I think I've needed since the beginning, is some counseling. I think that this is a trauma as a parent, for a parent to have a child this sick. And so I'm a big advocate of counseling, and I'm looking into starting that hopefully pretty soon. That's kind of something that we're looking into doing, because that it can be difficult on your marriage. It can be difficult just on you. And it's a trauma that I think we can't underestimate. It is a trauma. And so I think it'd be
important too. It's, even though our kids always will come first, it's important not to lose sight of yourself and the things that make you happy. And don't let being an autism biomed parent become your full identity, because it is to ground yourself in that.
Yes. I think, I totally agree. You can't let it be your whole identity. And like I said at the beginning, that's really hard not to do. I think that's okay. Maybe you can put a time frame on it. Like, just say, okay, I am going, to your spouse. Hopefully they're, supportive. I know a lot of the men maybe aren't as involved. Not all of them. Some men are the ones doing all this. But even if they're not as involved, if they're supportive of it, you can just say, this is going to take a lot of my time and energy as I'm first figuring this out, and I'm first gathering resources and information, but give me a few months and be patient with me as I figure this out. But just don't let yourself stay there, because it's not healthy. And I actually don't even think it helps your kid, because you're not doing productive thinking. You're just thinking all the time, but it's not really all that productive. So, yeah. So I think that's it, unless you have anything else.
No, thank you so much for taking the time to do this today. I'm so excited to share this with other families, and I think you shared a lot of great information and resources that a lot of parents will find value in. So I can't thank you enough, and I had such a good time connecting with you.
I did too. This was really fun. I'm looking forward to seeing the other ones that you do with the other parents, and hopefully just get the word out that we're not alone, and that hopefully in all my craziness and stuff, people will be like, oh, someone else is, struggling with that or thinking about that. So I think that's important, just to know that you're not alone. So this is a really cool idea. I'm glad you thought of this.
Thank you. Well, thank you again for taking the time, Courtney.